Hello, I'm Sarah Dawkins, and previously I was a registered nurse for 20 years. And I was raised by a registered nurse in that medical model. So for the first 41 years of my life, I actually believed that when we're sick, we need tablets, we need to go to a doctor, we need a diagnosis, and we need to take the tablets to heal ourselves. 41 years, that was my core belief about health and healing. Until in 2005, my life was rocked by a fellow nurse, and she questioned my use of pharmaceuticals at home. Why would she do that? Registered nurses use pharmaceuticals. We're all about hospitals and doctors and medical models. So I started doing some research at home. I started reading, and literally every night I was doing more and more research. And what I found was that our mind and bodies are all linked. We can't extricate one from the other, and that we can heal ourselves naturally. And I was reading so many testimonials from people who'd healed all sorts of health problems. So I started my own healing because I'd had a one or two or several health problems along the way. And by cutting out gluten and lactose from my diet, from de-stressing a little bit, and from taking a bit more exercise in the form of walking, just walking outside in the sunshine, within about 4 weeks, I healed eczema, psoriasis, and acid reflux. But because I was a registered nurse, my focus was just in the physical elements of what I could do. Things like nutrition, hydration, exercise, stress, and sleep. That's the only place I was looking, because that was all that was in my sphere of context at that time. So after I'd started my own healing with those first 3 conditions, I'm now seeing tangible results in my own body about what it's capable of doing when I'm being more conscious about supporting it. So I went on then to look further and do more research about what else my body's capable of. And it wasn't until I spiraled into a deep, dark depression that I realised I needed to do more work. But of course, being in that dark depression with suicidal thoughts, I couldn't think clearly. I wasn't aware of what work I needed to do. So I just plodded on day after day after day. But I had to take the dogs for a walk, so I was still outside walking every day in the fresh air, but so wrapped up in myself. And it was so dark that I didn't actually see the outside world for a long time, even though I was outside in it. But one day, I was walking the dogs, and suddenly, I don't know what made it happen, but I just looked up and there were buds on the trees. It was spring. And then I started to hear the stream that was running down the side of the path. And then I looked up further and there was some blue sky. I'd not seen any of this for a long time because my world was so dark, so bleak. And that's when I knew I was healing bit by bit, because I didn't want antidepressants. I'd tried them before and I had no idea how I was going to heal. I just had this deep-seated belief that I actually would heal myself, but couldn't put a finger on it, didn't know how it was going to happen. And it took me about 3 years to actually get through that depression and start healing it. And whilst I was in that depressed state, my thyroid stopped working and I burnt out my adrenal glands because of the stress that I was under as well. And so I'd started with the walking. As my mind came more on board and started to light up, I realised I was practicing mindfulness and gratitude without even knowing it. And that's about being more aware of my surroundings and what's going on, and being grateful, being thankful that I'm alive. I can see these buds on the trees. I can see the blue sky. I can smell the perfume of the flowers. And I was just so thankful that I could even do this. And as I started to heal a bit more, I started then to look at meditation. And my first thoughts of meditation, because I'd never done it before, was like sitting on the floor going, I tried this, and there was a voice in my head going, "Who do you think you are?" So I couldn't quieten that until I found guided meditations on the internet. Once I'd found that, I started to look for that inner peace within me just for 5 minutes each day, sitting, listening, in my mind's eye, taking myself off on that journey that I was listening to, and being in that place of calm and peace. And then as I started to feel a bit better, I started going on to, how do I want my life to look? What is really going on? And I see now, looking back, that depressive state was me at a crossroads in my life. I always wanted to be a nurse, so I went into nursing, but didn't feel the fulfillment I thought I would. And looking back now, that was my message, that actually, yes, I want to help people in their vulnerable states. Yes, I want to support people. But being that nurse in that hospital, I was keeping those people stuck in that medical model, being reliant on pills, on surgeries, on interventions. And I realized I needed to step away from that. But who was I? Because Sarah was a nurse, and if she wasn't a nurse, who on earth was she? So that led me to a whole authenticity battle to find who I was deep down at my core. Because so many of us go through life, and as a child we are who we are. But then we're told, no, don't do that, don't speak like that, act like this, do that. And we start putting all these layers on top of ourselves, and we become somebody who we're not, to please other people, to try and fit in, to be liked by people. So I had to strip back all these layers and find out who I was deep down at my core. And that took a lot of inner work, because outside of Sarah the nurse, I had no idea who I was, what I liked, and what I wanted to do. So anyway, as I stripped back all these layers, I realized that actually I'm a bit of a hippie and a bit of a gypsy soul. We like traveling, we like being free in the mountains, which is where we live now, and we like a simple life, myself and my husband. So I understood who I was. I've come back to who I am authentically. And that then led me on to, well, if I've healed myself, and I also healed chronic pain, bulimia nervosa, PTSD, and candida on top of all those other things. And I thought, well, I need to help people like myself before I undertook this healing to see that there is a life outside of pills and doctors and hospitals, because until I was 41, that's all I saw. I didn't understand this external world of health and healing that's coming from within us. It's not in the external world. It's coming from within us. We heal ourselves. So I trained as a coach to help other people and support them to heal themselves like I'd healed myself. And in the training, I also learned that the physical aspects of healing, I'd done that myself. I'd learned the mental health aspects of healing with the mindfulness, the gratitude, the meditation. And the meditation took me into a spiritual aspect of health and healing, because it brought me back into myself, to listen to that little voice within me that speaks, that I'd shushed and quietened all those years ago. And through my training, I actually realized there's another pillar of health and healing, and that's the emotional aspects. And that really is about healing our past. We have to be able to come to terms with whatever's happened in our past. If we can come to a place of being able to forgive people who hurt us, knowing that we don't really know what happened in their lives, or if we do, we know that they had a pretty bad childhood too, and hurt people. So can we forgive those people who hurt us, knowing that they were doing what they were doing with the skills and knowledge they had at the time? And if we can't come to that place of forgiveness, can we come to a place of peace within inside of ourselves, that when we think about that person, it doesn't raise negative emotions? We can still be at peace with ourselves. So if we can do either of those, that helps us heal the emotional side of us. And that's how I realized these 4 pillars of healing. but not just healing, for health in general, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the emotional. And we have to address all of those, not just to stay healthy, but also to heal our bodies. And once I'd done that and healed all of my 4 pillars of health and healing, I realized then that's how I could then go on in my life and help others to help themselves. Because in nursing, I helped them within the system, and they were staying in that system. Whereas when we heal ourselves, we step outside of that system and we tap into our inner knowledge, our inner wisdom, and we become more responsible, but we also become free of that system. We're able to extricate ourselves from that system. And feeling free and alive and healthy and feeling that joy within us, that's the perfect state to be in. And how many of us can be in that state? And it took me going through that depression with suicidal thoughts to understand that this was my path up until then, helping people, but to truly help people to help themselves, I had to leave nursing, surrender my license, and step away and follow this different new path. So for me now, I've learned that vital lesson in life, and it was an awful period of time. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody, but I had to go through that, and I'm grateful that I did go through that, because I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't have learnt the lessons that I've learnt through going through that. So my message to you is, there's always a lesson and a blessing in everything that we go through. Sometimes we can't see it, we have to wait for time to pass, but eventually we will see what that lesson and blessing is.